Good afternoon, students. I am Ms. Justina Namupala. I am your tutor for English 4. Please take note of my cell phone number, which is 081-610-9072, and my email address, which is justytutunga@gmail.com. Welcome to English 4. I wish you all to be hard-working, dedicated, and self-driven students in this course. This presentation covers the subject content in brief and some general guidelines that I want everyone to keep in mind when preparing for the 2020 examinations. Please pay attention to the exit learning outcomes in the index of the study guide. Pay attention to the learning outcomes of every unit of the study guide. Also, importantly, pay attention to the comments written in the assignments. They will also help you a lot when you are preparing for your exams. Please take note that you should pay attention to the verbs, the introductory verbs that introduce the question. For example, discuss, list, describe, analyze, compare and contrast, explain. This will determine what you should answer or how you should answer the question. If the question says discuss, you discuss and give reasons of what you are saying. If it says list, you only list. And if it says describe, you describe. If you compare and you contrast, it means you give similarities and you give differences of a certain topic. So please, it is very important that you study the introductory verbs that introduce the question. They are at the beginning of your study guide. Students, I will discuss some of the content of your study guide in order to help you prepare for the coming exams. By now, you should have a good idea what the subject is about, as you have already completed an assignment. Please note that I cannot give attention to the whole content, so should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me for help. Use the study guide to prepare for the examination. This is what you should look at when you are studying for your 2020 examination. The presentation does not specify which exam specifically, but it is for all 3 exams of 2020, the April, August and November exams. I repeat, the presentation does not specify for which month, but it is for all examinations in 2020, the April, August and November exam. Under Unit 1, this is what you should know. Differentiate between the following characters. They are in the study guide. Please study them. For example, we have a protagonist, antagonist, round or complex, flat or simple, dynamic. I repeat this. You should be able to differentiate between the following characters: the protagonist, antagonist, round or complex character, flat or simple character, the dynamic character. You should not only know how to explain what is a protagonist, but you should also be able to apply, for example, from a story, you should be able to identify who is the protagonist, who is the antagonist, or who appears to be the dynamic character from the story. I repeat that you should not only be able to explain that the protagonist is the main character of the story, but you should also be able to read a story and describe who appears to be the protagonist in a certain story. You must know the difference between simile and metaphor. These are two different things, even if they seem alike. You should know that simile is when you compare two things using comparison words like or as. For example, if you say that Maria runs like a cheetah, then that is simile because you have used the comparison word which is like. And that metaphor is when you compare but you do not use comparison words. For example, if you say that she is a cheetah, you did not use a comparison word that makes it a metaphor. Even if you want to tell us that Maria is a cheetah, you did not use any comparison words. So a simile and metaphor both are used in comparing instances. So please, you should also not only know how to explain what is simile or metaphor, you should also be able to pick it out from a poem or from a story. Explain and discuss why it is beneficial for an English teacher to use literature in a classroom. You give reasons why teachers should use literature in their classrooms. You identify challenges faced when using literature in the classroom. You should be able to name and explain the common types of irony in literature. For example, if situational irony, we have situational irony. You should be able to describe and explain what it is. Also, you should also be able to apply it into a poem or into a story. You should not only know how to explain something, but you should be able to pick it out from a poem or from a story. You will also be asked to come up with a lesson plan of a story completion or story ending prediction. We will look at how to compile a lesson plan later on in the presentation. Under Unit 2, you must be able to define the following types of dramas. Not only define, but you should be able to name them. For example, we have novels, we have drama, we have poetry, we have tragedy, we have comedy, we have a fantasy, and we have a farce. These are the types of dramas. So you should be able to explain that a drama is a story with what, and that a poetry is what and what. You should be able to explain the following. You should be able to explain how to use the ABCDE formula to write a short story or a novel. You must be able to list the benefits of using literature in the classroom. Also, you must study the different types of novels as they appear in the study guide. We have the picaresque, the epistolary, the realistic novel, and the historical novel. Please study them. You should be able to give reasons why a teacher should use questions in the classroom. Why is it beneficial for a teacher to use questions in the classroom when they are teaching? Also, under Unit 2, you must study all the literary techniques and terms that appear under Unit 2 or the whole guide. For example, we have allusion, catastrophe, climax or crisis. You must be able to tell that a climax is the turning point of the story, or a crisis is the turning point in the story. You must be able to explain irony. I've already touched on that one. You must know what is a metonymy, soliloquy, personification, hyperbole, the setting, the plot, the narrator, the antagonist, conflict, metaphor, onomatopoeia or symbol. You must be able to explain all the literary techniques that appear in the study guide when it comes to literature. Let's go back to the techniques. Like I said earlier, don't only know how to explain what is metaphor or what is onomatopoeia. You must be able to refer it back to analyzing literature. For example, if you are given a poem and the question says that identify personification from the poem, you must be able to identify personification from the poem or describe the antagonist from the story. You should be able to do that. Under Unit 3, you should look at the guidelines that a teacher can use for classroom teaching. You should be able to differentiate between dramatic poetry and lyric poetry. You must study the qualities of a sonnet. Give characteristics of a narrative poetry. Number 5, you must be able to read and analyze poems and answer the questions that are asked of you. You should use poetry language. For example, if you are referring to the person that wrote the poem, him or her is called a poet. You do not say the writer. You use poetry language. You must use literature language. If you want to refer to the paragraphs of the poem, it's not paragraph, but it's called stanza. Also, you must be able, like I said before, identify the techniques like simile or themes. If a question asks you to identify the themes from the poem, theme, in other words, is a question that you ask yourself of what is the poem about. The answer you give yourself when you answer yourself that question is called theme. If you say that the poem is about war, then war is the theme of that poem. Also, when you are analyzing a poem or analyzing a story, you must be able to give evidence from the poem. and please specify where in the poem you found the evidence. You must use evidence from the poem to support your answer. You cannot just say that the theme of the poem is war. You must give me a valid reason why you are saying that it's war. So you go back to the poem and give me evidence that the theme of the poem is war, because it indicates in the first stanza that people went to war and they were shooting with guns. So my overall point there is that you must give evidence from the poem or from the story to support your answer. There will also be a lesson plan of which you teach various elements of literature. Under Unit 4, you should be able to answer questions when it comes to analyzing pictures. For example, you must name and explain guidelines of analyzing pictures. Explain what the following terms entails when it comes to pictures. Or for example, it says there, what is an aerial shot, what is blacklighting, bridging shot, camera angle, what it means by cut, what it means by focus deep, dissolve or lap dissolve, it means by dolly or editing or ellipses. You must be able to explain the following terms. Also, you must study the basic vocabulary used in describing photographs. We have the abstract, the content, the direct approach, the documentary, photography, expressive or geometric. You must be able to explain all these vocabulary used in describing photographs. Now that is all for all the units in the study guide. Now we are going to look at how you come up with a lesson plan. What is a lesson plan? A lesson plan is the overall planning for the lesson. It is done before a lesson, before you teach your learners how to read. You must plan what you are going to do, or what the learners are going to do, how you are going to deliver your lesson. Therefore, a lesson plan is a very important aspect of a teacher. You do not teach without planning. Otherwise, you will not even know what you are doing when you stand in front of those learners. We have different sections of the lesson plan. Some of them are very straightforward, of which are not difficult to understand. For example, number 1, we have the date. You write down the date of which you are delivering your lesson. Of which, let's say that you are delivering your lesson on the 21st of November. You write the 21 November 2019. If you are teaching a grade 6 class or a grade 7 class, you write there grade 6. You can even specify if it's grade 6C, if it's only one grade 6, or grade 6A up to D. The subject is English as a second language, because that is the subject you are teaching. Number 4, we have the theme. The theme is specified into the syllabus. It is very important that you equipped yourself with the syllabus beforehand, because your syllabus will help you identify the themes. It will also help you with identifying the basic competencies and the learning objectives. Your theme, like I said before, is specified into the syllabus. It is under cross-curricular issues. It can either be HIV and AIDS, ICT, population, education, sports, environment. All the themes are specified in the syllabus. What will determine your theme? The theme will be determined by what your learners are reading about. For example, if they are reading a passage on different types of sports activities, your theme will be sport. These themes are also appearing in the textbooks. Under each topic there is a theme, so that is the theme you use when you are completing your lesson plan. And then we have the topic. What do we mean by the topic? Which one is the topic? The topic is your lesson. What are you teaching about? If you are teaching your learners how to use punctuation marks, then your topic is punctuation marks. If you are teaching them how to read aloud, you specify that it is reading aloud. If you are teaching them how to write an essay, specifically a narrative essay, you indicate that it is a narrative essay. And then we have the syllabus objectives. What are the syllabus objectives, or which ones are the syllabus objectives? The syllabus objectives are also in the syllabus. Now, the syllabus objectives and the basic competencies are usually provided for you in an exam. But for your own information, the syllabus objectives and basic competencies are all in the syllabus. When you deliver your lesson, make sure that all your competencies are met. The basic competencies refer to what you want your learners to know about during that lesson. We have the teaching media or teaching aid. This is what you use to deliver your lesson. For example, if you are using textbooks, if the learners are reading a passage in the textbook, in the Namibian textbook, for example, you indicate there that you have used the grade 6 textbook, you have used the grade 6 English textbook. If they watched a video, you must specify that your learners are going to be watching a video, and you should indicate the name of the video and what it's about. If they are going to use pictures, or are they going to use any material that will help you deliver the lesson, that is what you write under teaching media. We have the lesson presentation. The lesson presentation is the overall lesson. For example, you specify if the learners are going to do group work, if they are going to do individual work, are they going to listen to the radio, are they going to listen to the teacher, are they listening to their peer learners teaching them. You specify how the lesson is going to go about. Number 10, we have the presentation of the subject matter. Here, you must include learner and teacher activities, and it also includes the teaching of the competencies. You must specify that the learners are going to read a passage on the advantages of using cell phones. You must indicate that the teacher is going to listen to what the learners have to say about computers. You must specify that the learners will be doing what and the teacher is going to do what. And this is where the teacher will teach. This is the section where you teach your learners what you want to teach them that day. And then we have monitoring of homework, and we have under brackets there that it's revision, meaning we revise on the previous work. So monitoring of homework means that you monitor the homework of the previous day. It is not homework that you are giving that day, but you monitor the homework that you have given the previous day. If you give your learners homework or classwork, you monitor if they have done the work, you mark the work, and then you give revision. Or let's say you have already marked the work, you give it back to the learners, you give their books back, for example, and then you look at their marks, you do the revision, you give corrections under this section of monitoring homework. We also have an introduction on the lesson plan. What do we write under the introduction? Here you introduce the topic or the lesson to the learners. You do not just appear in the class and then you start teaching, and the learners are not even aware of what you are teaching them. So before you start teaching them, you tell them that they are going to learn about how to read aloud, or how to scan and skim information from a passage. So before you start teaching, please introduce the lesson to the learners. Under 13, we have the consolidation. What do we do under the consolidation? Here, you must emphasize on the important points of what was taught. Meaning you must summarize your lesson. You must recap on what you have told your learners, the main important points. So a consolidation is a conclusion. A consolidation, just like when you are writing an essay, it is not a new idea, it is a summary. It is the main points of what you have already taught the learners. So you just emphasize on those main important points that you want your learners to know about. And then we have the assessment or the homework or the tasks. This is the assessment, task, or homework to be done by the learners. Here, this is when you give homework. When you give homework or classwork or a test or group work to your learners after you have taught. Because you want to know if you have really taught the correct way, you have to give work, you have to test, you have to assess the learners on how far you have gone with your lesson. So here it is the homework or the class activities that you are going to give the learners relating to that topic that you have taught that day. And then we have English across the curriculum. What do we mean by this? What is English across the curriculum? Here you ask yourself, how did you include other subject knowledge into your English lesson? Subject knowledge, we mean your learners have different subjects, isn't it? They have various subjects. They have social studies, they have ICT, they have environmental studies, they have mathematics, to mention just a few. So, under the English across the curriculum, you ask yourself, what subject knowledge did I include in my lesson, in your English lesson? If your learners were watching a video on how to keep their school environment clean and how to avoid pollution, it means that the knowledge that they have read from the passage, that there is knowledge from a different subject. It is knowledge from the environmental studies subject. So you specify there that you have used a knowledge from the environmental studies subject. If your learners were reading an autobiography on one of the leaders, for example, Nelson Mandela, it means that you have used knowledge from a social studies subject. So you specify that you have used subject knowledge from the social studies class because that is part of social studies. So English across the curriculum is knowledge from the other subjects that you have used into your English lesson. And then we have the reflection. What do we write under the reflection? The reflection is done after the lesson is delivered. You ask yourself if you have met the objectives, if the competencies are met. You ask yourself if you have delivered the lesson effectively or not. When do we do the reflection? The reflection is done after the learners have completed the task, the assessment. When you have marked this assessment, when you have assessed them and you have compiled the marks that they got from the assessment, the marks will determine if you have met your objectives of the lesson. If your learners have failed the test, no one got 20 out of 20, it means that your objectives are not met. It means you did not hit the objectives, you did not hit the basic competencies. It means that you did not deliver your lesson successfully. So here you indicate whether you met the objectives, if your lesson was a success or if it was not. And if it was not, you indicate how you are going to redo the lesson, which different approach are you going to use to make sure that you meet the syllabus objectives and the basic competencies. Now that is how you should write the lesson plan. If you do not understand anything relating most especially to the lesson plan, please do not hesitate to contact me. I will gladly help you regarding the lesson plan. Now, dear students, this is what you should do in an exam room. Please read the instructions and questions carefully. As a teacher, You must always use practical examples when necessary to strengthen your answers. Please provide sufficient answers, meaning that don't write too little, do not write too much. Also, check the marks allocated to determine the length of your answer. Don't try to memorize everything from the study guide. Read to understand. Read your instructions carefully, like I said before. Your answers must be complete, meaning you must punctuate your sentences. Write as neatly as you can. Write full sentences and don't write long sentences. Don't copy from the guide. Use your own examples. Please understand what is asked of you. Don't write unnecessary facts or ideas. Make use of the marks allocated per question. Make sure you understand the question before you attempt to answer it. Call or text the tutor to explain anything that you don't understand. Students, please take note that this is an English subject. It is therefore very important that grammar rules should apply as such. Don't leave questions unanswered. Put in more effort. Make sure you understand. Make use of this presentation because it is done to help you prepare for the examinations. Please also be aware that you should and must only write on the lines provided for you. Do not write beyond the lines. Also, do not add your own lines. Only write on those provided for you. Good luck with your examinations. All the best.